We are joined now, as we told you we would be, by comedian Adam Carolla, who did a show back in the day, The Man Show, which I think is long past due for a resumption, because I think young men today would love this show even more than young men did when it was initially on 20 some odd years ago. Adam, you're still traveling. You are an unabashed, which is somewhat rare in Hollywood, person who is willing to publicly say, hey, I'm a Republican. I tend to vote Republican and for Trump and things like that. I'm putting those words in your mouth, but that is somewhat of a rarity. And you're also really good friends with Jimmy Kimmel, and you guys have remained good friends for a very long time. So this story obviously can hit you from multiple different directions. Appreciate you coming on. I know you've been on several times before. You listen to the show often. What do you think people should know about this situation, and where do you expect it to go from here?
Well, the first thing I think all Americans need to understand is there's a lot of people of the world on the planet, and even in our own country, that have real problems. We sometimes get so caught up in what this millionaire is trying to do to what that billionaire. Everybody's going to land on their feet. If Jimmy's show never came back for another day, Jimmy would still be rich. He'd still be creating. He'd still be working. He'd go right on to whatever his next endeavor was. And whatever you think about Trump, he'll be playing golf this Sunday with other rich guys. So, I think people need to get a little bit of the weight of the world kind of vibe, dispel that a little bit, because everybody in this story could be Trump, could be the FCC, could be Kimmel. Everyone's going to land on their feet, and everyone's doing just fine. Now, then we get into the implications part, where we go, all right, well, everyone's still going to be rich, and everyone's going to still be a homeowner, but what are the implications here? I've always kind of said people should be free to say whatever they want to say on TV, radio, podcasts, where have you, and then whoever pays them should also be free to fire them if they want. And
I think we lost Jimmy there. I think we lost Adam talking about Jimmy there for a minute. We'll see if we can get him back with a better signal. Buck, in general, I think the proposition here that there is going to be some sort of major significant ripples or impact, to Adam's point, actually fades somewhat, because no one's taking Jimmy's ability to speak away. And I think a lot of times when people say, oh, the First Amendment, in this day and age, it probably matters less to be on a platform than ever
let me
before.
put this to you, Adam. I think that you're right, obviously, in that Jimmy's rich, all these other people that we're talking about here, he's going to keep doing stuff no matter what, even if he's not on the show, that's fine. But I think that the reason one is there was just the rawness of people still processing what had happened to Charlie Kirk, the worst political assassination in living memory. And I think that had a lot of people very upset and rattled. But in terms of the broader implications for corporate America, there has been, everyone's been saying, a vibe shift post-Trump 2024, where it feels like companies are certainly more cautious about spitting in the face of half of the country. And I think specifically with Disney, people are looking at this like, does Disney realize that they're not untouchable as well from the consumer? How do you view that part of it?
Yeah, the companies are going to go wherever the money is going, but sometimes they're like a battleship. It takes them a while to turn around, So we've been kind of talking about this stuff for 8 years. They've been turning the battleship around for 7 years, and they finally corrected course, And, it's something, of course, Michael Jordan knew all those years ago, which is Republicans buy Nikes as well. So Madison Avenue or, think about the kind of commercials you used to see 4 or 5 years ago, the mixed race couples, the mixed race lesbian couple is driving the Subaru. And now you got Dana White as the voice of Dodge, and there's a guy doing donuts in the parking lot with a flag flying off the back of the Dodge Ram truck. Like, it's turned around. I agree.
Where do you see this going? How does this play out? We're talking to Adam Carolla, a longtime friend of Jimmy Kimmel. You know Jimmy well. If Disney comes to him and they say, hey, you've got to apologize and you've got to make a donation, that's one of the demands that's out there from one of the affiliate stations. Do you think the show comes back? Do you think Jimmy just says, you know what, I've done my duty on this show. I'm going to ride off into the sunset and do a new show? How do you think this plays out if you're analyzing the Disney and the Jimmy perspective?
Well, knowing Jimmy like I do, he's not a big apologizer, but neither am I. And so you can go, well, that's not a good trait. And it's also, but it can be a noble trait. I believe what I say. I mean, I get asked to apologize for stuff a lot, and I say no because I stand by what I said. Also, Jimmy does have quite a sense of responsibility to his employees, and I know he feels very sort of personally responsible for the families and all the people and the breadwinners and all the people that he employs. And so he is in a little bit of a quandary because he does feel very indebted to those people and feels like they have family and livelihoods, and he's a big part of that. And so it's a kind of a weird position he's in because I don't think he's planning on apologizing. On the other hand, if the show goes away, there's a lot of people that are going to be out of jobs, and he feels responsible for those people.
Adam, you're a Trump guy. Jimmy's clearly not. Some people would say, how are you guys friends still to the extent that you are? How would you describe it? How would you respond to that?
Well, I think when there's a divorce, it's incumbent upon the parents to act responsibly in front of the kids, right? So you'd like to make a good example and not trash mama or talk crap about papa, in front of the kids. And I do feel a little bit, first off, we're friends. We laugh. We talk about food and sports and make fun of people and talk about the old days and that kind of stuff. Politics is not, it's not like we ever did talk about politics, and we just didn't begin to talk about politics. It's like, it's like, you guys have to not talk about politics. We never spoke about politics, and we basically just didn't begin. But I feel like a little bit of a fiduciary duty to hey, listen, whether it's your daughter or your old comedy partner, just because you disagree politically doesn't mean you have to hate the person, not break bread with the person, not have dinner with the person. I mean, you don't have to ruin Thanksgiving because you guys have different political beliefs, and I feel the same way with friends and old comic partners.
Do you feel like we're entering a new age, a revitalized age of comedy because comedians are able to be funny again? I guess that's a simplistic way of putting it, but they're allowed to make fun of the leftist cathedral a little bit. I mean, certainly with Biden's dementia and the cover-up and all these things now, it feels, and with Trump winning, it feels like you can actually just make jokes without the same fear of cancellation. I mean, is this the best it's been in that world in your memory, or is it a return to like the late 90s? How would you view the landscape right now for making jokes without fear of getting picketed and, the Subaru drivers you mentioned before getting very angry at you, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's salad days for comedy. And the best time for comedy is always going to be the freest time for comedy. So that'll be the best time for all artistic expression. The best time for painters are going to be the freest time to paint, or sculptors, poets, writers. If you, you're looking over your shoulder, then you're not going to be able to do your job as a comedian. And I always use the example of, when you go out to eat and you're with one of your buddies and you want a steak and a martini, and you want to just kind of cut loose, and you see a single woman sitting in the booth right next to yours, and you know she can hear every word you say, well, you change the conversation. It's not as free a conversation with her there. You know what I mean? And if you're kind of looking over your shoulder when you're talking, it's never going to be the best version of what you're going to have to say.
We're talking to Adam Carolla. Last question for you, and we appreciate you calling in and giving us your analysis here. You called in the last time I think we had you on because you found out your house survived the awful fires in Los Angeles. I've seen you post a couple of times since. You also used to work in construction. Scale of 1 to 10. How is the city of Los Angeles and the state of California doing in allowing people to rebuild who lost everything in those LA fires? What are you seeing on the ground? You got the construction background, and you've got a home that survived but was in the midst of much of the destruction.
Yeah, I have a blog at adamcarolla.com, and people can keep up with it and watch, I chronicle the whole thing. In terms of Malibu, the answer would be 0. There is 0 building. And I go up and down Pacific Coast Highway every day. My head is on a swivel. I know what a lumber truck looks like. I know what caisson rigs look like. I know when guys are out there shooting elevations with a transit. I understand what it's like to prepare a site to build on. There is 100% 0 work going on in Malibu. There's a little bit in the Palisades, not much, but Malibu is a big, fat 0 burger, and I think Altadena's pretty much a 0 burger as well. And it's permits, it's red tape, it's Coastal Commission, it's the city council, it's all the above, but it's what I predicted from my hotel room the following morning after the fire. You guys have no idea what you're in for because you're not going to get permits, and the city's not going to be helpful.
One last question. I don't think you've told this story, Adam, but since it ties in with the fires, when you graduated high school, you thought, hey, maybe I'll be an LA fireman. And you went and applied. And then when you finally got a call back, how long did it take? And there's been a lot of discussion about DEI. What was your experience in that?
Well, I was a poor kid who wasn't going to college and came from a poor family and really didn't have anything going on in my life. And the job market was bad and the economy was bad. This is the mid-early 80s. And I literally just walked to the North Hollywood Fire Department because it would have been a perfect job for a guy like me. I played football. I was pretty strong. I was kind of not scared of stuff. And I would have been a good fireman. And so I just walked in off the street. And I just said, can I sign up to be a fireman? And the guy said, yeah, fill this out. And I handed it back to him, and he said, but don't hold your breath. And I said, why? And he said, well, it's going to be a while. We're not really hiring white guys right now. And I thought, yeah, all right. I just handed him the paper. And then I got on with my life. And years went by, and I was driving a truck and working on construction sites and swinging a hammer. And at some point, my dad showed up. I was having lunch with him, and he gave me an envelope from the LA Fire Department because it was his address. I wrote on the on the piece of paper because I was living with my dad at the time. It was so long ago. And I had a test date. And I said, hell, I'll take the test. It'd been 7 years. And I went to go take the test. And I was standing in line, and I was asking everyone when they signed up. And I talked to a young black woman behind me. And I said, when did you sign up to take this test? Because it's been 7 years for me. And she said, Tuesday.
Oh, my God. That is an unbelievable. So you had to wait 7 years to take the test to be an LA fireman. Black woman in line with you signed up and got the test that week.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Adam, we appreciate the time. I know you're a busy guy, and thanks for calling us up.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always appreciate it.
Anytime.
That's Adam Carolla. That's a crazy story. I think really kind of goes to the essence. 7 years to become an LA fireman if you're a white guy. Black woman, that week she gets to take the test. I bet also, Buck, the tests probably are scored differently Just going to toss it out there. I bet you don't have to get the same scores. I bet you're not even held even on that test back in those days. I want to tell you, Prize Picks, we won. We won again. 2 out of 3 weeks. Cha-ching, cha-ching. I'll give you a pick on Thursday for the NFL action that is going on. You can play along with us in California, where you just heard Adam Carolla call in from, in Texas, in Georgia, down in Florida, where Buck is, in Tennessee, where I am. You can play in 40-plus states. You get $50 when you play $5. This is an advertisement. It's a lot of fun. You can play along, or you can think Clay Travis has no idea what he's talking about, and you can take the exact opposite. All you have to do is pick more or less. You can also make your own picks. Again, 3 weeks, 2 winners, nearly won 3 out of 3 weeks. It's going to be fun. We're going to do it all season long in the NFL. You can play along. All you have to do is go to prizepicks.com. Use code CLAY. That is prizepicks.com. Code CLAY to get hooked up today. prizepicks.com. Code CLAY.
The best antidote to wokeness?
The Clay and Buck Show. Like, subscribe, and share.